Hey everyone, I've gotten a few questions about the final project, and so I just wanted to post this video to hopefully answer some of those and give you some pointers and help along the way. So for our class in particular, since we are the Ed cohort, I have tweaked what the usual final project that is a research-focused project on New Mexico history to give you the opportunity, I hope, to do something that will be useful for your program and for your future work as a teacher. I do recognize that you're not all going to be teaching New Mexico history, but I'm hoping that this project might give you an opportunity to think about ways that New Mexico history examples might inform some of the lessons that you do teach. So for example, in the instructions, I gave the idea that if you're teaching a science lesson on the atom, for example, or something like that, you might be able to pull in the Manhattan Project, the cultural and historical story around that, to enrich a science lesson. That's just one idea, one example. This assignment then, the way that I've framed it, requires you to use your imagination about what your future will be as a teacher. Hopefully it'll get you to think about what your pedagogical values are. So what are the things that you want students to be doing, to be engaged with so that they can learn not just the topics that you're going to be teaching them at whatever level you'll be teaching, but that they'll be able to learn about the culture, about the communities around them, and the deep history that we have here. So that's a little bit about where I'm coming from with the assignment. To be a little more specific regarding the questions that I've been asked, when I'm asking you to write a research question, essentially that is the main thing that you want to learn about your topic through your research. Or it could be, if you're thinking in terms of creating a lesson that students would then do something with for your project, your research question might then be the main question you would like students to answer through their work on the lesson and assignment that you are creating. So, again, try not to be, as I mentioned in the assignment instructions, try not to be focused on details too much because those kinds of questions don't allow for a lot of elaboration. They don't allow for discussion and conversation. They don't allow for building arguments. And so what I mean by that is don't ask a specific question like, what year was Billy the Kid born? But instead ask about why Billy the Kid's actions had such an impact on territorial era New Mexico, and in what ways they impacted territorial era New Mexico. If you were thinking of the project as a research project, the research question would be the thing that you would want to answer, and your main answer to it would be your thesis statement. So as you were going along to maybe write a research paper, your answer to your research question would be your thesis statement, and then you would lay out all of the evidence that you'd found through your research to show why you had reached that conclusion, come up with that answer. Hopefully that's helpful in some way. Also, a few of you asked about what I mean by digital lesson. Essentially, it's what I've been alluding to here as I've been talking. It's the idea that rather than creating a research paper, you will be using a digital platform of whatever you want, whichever ones you're familiar with. I've given you some examples in the assignment instructions. You could use Tiki-Taki, for example. You could use Adobe Spark. You could do something with Twitter. You could ask students to annotate things on Hypothesis if you're coming up with that type of a lesson. So I want you to be creative and imaginative. Use the platforms that make sense to you to create a lesson for students. It could be at whatever grade level, right? So you may, for example, want to use your primary source that you've found as something that you set up, say, on a blog post. On your blog, you put a link to the primary source, or else you take excerpts from it, and then you give a little bit of an explanation that students could read through, maybe videos, those other sources that you're finding that provide context, so that students could walk their way through that primary source and understand it, and then you could pose some questions for them, one of which might be your research question um, that they would then answer. Hopefully that makes sense. Um, if you really would rather not do a digital type of project, um, oh, and the other option, if you don't want to just build a lesson, is to do kind of a research report on the sources that you find. And again, I've listed the number of sources and the types of sources that you need. That's what you'll do in the second stage of the project, is find all of those. If you don't want to do some sort of a lesson for students with that, some sort of activity for them, then, and again, these are imagined students, then you can write about your sources and explain how you might teach those in class, or how you might want to help students understand those in class, again, an imagined class in the future. Just really trying to think about how you would bring history into what you're going to do as a teacher. Why students might need to know certain things about the sources you've found, for example. And then you could post that in an Adobe Spark presentation. You could just write an essay, however you're most comfortable with presenting that information. Again, hopefully this makes some sense. I'm trying to leave it kind of open for you to do something that will be helpful, will be useful, and that will help you better understand some elements of New Mexico history and how you would teach those to students in a future classroom. If you still have questions, you very well might. Don't hesitate to ask. If you're trying to figure out what topic you want to do, because I left that totally open, it's anything related to New Mexico history, do send me an email. I'm happy to help with brainstorming. If you do, please let me know some things you're interested in, because I want to point you toward topics that you'll hopefully enjoy researching for the next several weeks. So again, hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully that wasn't too rambling, and I will talk to you soon.